Okay, back for another Rant of the Guru, part 2 of Serak curriculum and ideas about Serak, how to train, what not to train, what's bullshit, what's not bullshit, the good stuff. So anyhow, we were talking earlier about a gist or basic idea of a curriculum traditionally, and that things were never really structured into phases or levels. It was more, you are a disciple of a teacher, then an apprentice, then a junior instructor, and then you'd be made an instructor, and then you'd become a full instructor when you knew all the material, or you were competent enough in being able to teach that material. So, hold on a second, we're dealing with Miami traffic here. By the way, Miami traffic is a great way to practice your Serak timing. You have to have good timing to drive in this damn city. Anyhow, so I want to talk a little bit about sambuts. Sambuts in Serak, you have, each teacher might have different ones. Pentjak Paul made up his own sambuts based on his favorite principles and motions of the art and how he interpreted how his teacher, Uncle John, would move. Okay, Pak Victor has his own sambuts too. They're a little different than Uncle Paul's. Uncle Paul had 8 Bukti Negara sambuts and 18 Serak sambuts. All very similar. Some components are different than the others. Uncle Willem has a little bit more of a free structure where Uncle Willem likes to focus on improvisation and freedom in the art and free expression in the art. So the sambuts are always in the moment, and basically that's what would be called a combative sambut, where you are combatively practicing a principle or a mechanic or a strategy of the art or a structure of the art. And usually that's done with a partner. Actually, all sambuts are done with a partner. In some sambuts, the partner is just standing there like a wooden dummy. And in other sambuts, the partner is giving you an energy and you're working off of that energy from a reference point or a specific attack or a specific line on the panjar, etc. So a lot of times a teacher in the past would either structure these sambuts so that the student could learn core principles and core techniques and core understanding of how to combine lanka, juru, and kuda kuda. Or it would be more free-flowing, where the instructor would say, okay, we're going to take this piece of one juru, this kuda or these 2 kudas, and maybe these lines of this panjar. And then there would be an improvised sambut in the moment, a combative sambut. Then you have other instructors that have positional sambuts, like Pentjak Paul's. A lot of his are very positional based, how you position yourself in reference to the opponent. And those teach specific alignments and specific coordination and specific ways for you to set up yourself, your shoulder line, your center line, etc., in reference to your opponent. Then you have timing sambuts, where you're working on your timing. And some instructors do this also. I'm not going to mention names, but they have good ones. Some of them are good. So, again, the old way was never structured per se. It was, here's a principle, and this is what you're trying to learn. And a lot of times you have to figure things out on your own. But it's good to have a little bit of structure and a little idea. I think Pentjak Paul's sambuts are really like many, many ideas condensed into one sambut. You could divide those into simple ideas where it would be, let's say one sambut has like 10 or 5 to 10 movements or 5 to 10 positions. You could condense that as if each position was one sambut. to work on. So you can create your sambuts. You can do whatever you want with the art. Once you know the alphabet, anybody could create a sambut. Once you understand the lankas, the panjars, the kuda, the jurus, the alphabet of the arts, the fundamentals. It's just like music. You know, in music you have scales, you have notes, you have arpeggios, you have chords. So you could create your own music this way. And it's the same thing. It's the same methodology in Serak, where you have components that you study them in pieces. So a lot of times, for example, in Uncle Willem's Serak, we'll have one long juru with many motions and many kudas and lankas inside of the juru. And then what we'll do to study it is we'll just break it down and we'll work on one piece at a time, and then understand that one piece 360 degrees, forward and back, left and right, diagonal, and every possible line of your lanka, and figure out how to use that piece in different kudas, etc., etc. So this is how you study in depth the art. And again, somebody could sit there and codify it all and write a big book, but really the magic of the art is studying it and studying the fundamentals and seeing how you develop your own Serak, your own Silat, based on that knowledge of how to put those fundamentals together. So I think sambuts are a good idea if you can learn the sambuts or the sambut methodology of Om Willem, Om Maurice, Om Paul, and even Om Victor. You can get a lot of information from there. I think all the Detoires brothers had something very unique to offer, and it is clear that the whole family knows the art. Anybody who tells you they don't is completely full of shit. So anyhow, the other thing about the sambuts really quickly is that if you study the sambuts correctly, you also learn your target selection. You'll learn the dim mak aspects of the art. You'll learn the disruption of meridians and energy lines and things like this. You'll also learn the disruptions of balance, the balance points, the levers. The sambuts are really putting everything together, because at the beginner level, the beginner will think, oh, well, there's, you know, these techniques, Sapu, Beset, Kenjit, Tarik Kapala, Pura Kapala, Kenjit Siko, Angkat, Gapit, Lempar Lenga, and they'll think of techniques. But in the advanced or intermediate and advanced level, it's no longer about technique. It's about understanding your position in relation to your opponent's position and how you dominate and control the timing, the center, the various center lines, and how you occupy the spaces, and how you off balance and take the consciousness of the opponent. So you might have things later on that look like a Sapu mixed with a Pura Kapala mixed into a Kenjit Siko. It's not that you were looking for that, it's that that's how you ended up, based on using your proper mechanics, your lines, your timing, your positioning, etc., and how you use the sectors of the body, and how you sectored or cut off the attacker's ability to keep his structure. So I personally don't like to think about technique when I'm teaching or training. Instead, I like to give the students the principles for them to come up with their own techniques. I have one very good teacher that was good like this from Pentjak Paul's line, who he suggested, and I've always thought that this was a good idea, and I think Pentjak Paul also suggested this, that you should have at least 5 to 7 things that you could do from any position. And I think that's just a start, because really, if you analyze and take the time to analyze any sector, any reference point, you should come up with hundreds of things to do when it comes to striking, takedown, balancing, taking the balance, structures, leverage, target selections, dissolving, moving, fortifying. And that's another thing that you have to understand in your Serak. If you look at the Serak from Uncle Willem Detoires, we're always looking to understand how to dissolve center, how to move center, how to fortify center. And that's going to be another topic that we'll talk in another video. But you see, there's a lot of complexity in this stuff, and the sambuts can be used to train all these aspects. And then next to the sambuts, you have drills. There are sensitivity drills. There are sensitivity hand drills, like tangan kaca. There's, which is the mirror hand drill. There's sensitivity pukulan drills where you're on the defensive. There's pukulan drills where you're on the offensive. There's pukulan drills where you're flowing together. There's pukulan drills where you're countering each other. There's also leg drills where you're sticking the legs together, back and forth drills, pliket, things like this. And in those back and forth drills, you work on sensitivity, rooting, you work on timing, you work on off-balancing, takedown strategy, target selection. You also work on specific tools. Now, we've talked about it. Don't think of the techniques as tools, as techniques, think of them as tools. So, for example, the sapu is a tool, the beset is a tool, the sabit is a tool, the putar kapala is a tool, the kenjit siko is a tool, the tarik kapala is a tool, the idea of pulling and pushing is a tool, the gapit is a tool. So when you start to think of these as tools, you no longer think of them as techniques. Instead, you think of them as positions, as extensions of your body, of your intent, extensions of how you deal with energy. And then you start to add timing to these things. So all of this is a big curriculum, really, if you start to look at it that way. So anyhow, this is another quick rant. We'll go into more detail later about these things, but I hope that this inspires you to learn more about the art. And if you find that you're supposedly being taught Serak, but you're not being taught any of these things I've told you, then somebody's either holding information from you or you're not being taught correctly. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this talk. Take care. God bless. See you soon on the training floor.